Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast. Place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 161. What are you attached to? So welcome back to our Freedom Focus Month. Remember last week, we focused on the 5 levels of attachment, going from the authentic self to fanaticism and all the levels in between, and how we can really lose ourselves in what we become attached to. Because remember, attachment is really a focus on desired outcomes. So today we're going to talk about what are your attachments specifically. As a reminder, what we mean by that are different areas. One is a person, someone you probably care about, what you want for them, what you want them to believe, think, feel, or do, how you want them to behave. Maybe it's a thing, maybe it's an asset, maybe it's a job or an accomplishment, maybe a promotion, maybe you don't want to lose your job, or an event, a situation, something that you're planning, something that you're hoping will turn out a certain way, or avoiding a certain outcome. So this is all about trying to control outcomes, right? And like we talked about, attachment is all about trying to have some sense of control. And the more we focus out there on what we're trying to fix, change, or make unhappen, the more we lose touch with ourselves. Like we talked about last week, attachment is control and boundaries are the opposite of all of that. All right, so what are you attached to? As you're listening today, all I want you to do is, with compassion, get honest with yourself, like really honest. You may have some defensiveness come up on the inside, and that's totally understandable. I'd be kind of worried about you if you weren't resistant to looking at this at first. Some of these things are hard to admit, and that's okay. So the first area, like we talked about, is people, those you care about. You want good things for them. You want them to be happy. You want them to be healthy. You want them to be successful, perhaps. Maybe you want to see them more. You don't want to have to worry about them. You want them to be okay so you can feel okay. For parents, this is even harder to let go of this attachment, because for many years, they are our responsibility to make sure they're okay. So it's tricky learning how to let go as they get older. And in terms of the people you care about, you may want good things from them as well. Maybe respect, love, kindness, appreciation. To hold the space for you when you really need it and not make it about them. Maybe some help, some good partnership, some closeness, some friendship. There are people that maybe you think can influence outcomes, like maybe your son's coach or teacher in a class where he might be struggling. And maybe it's about your community where you're looking toward leaders who can make decisions. These could be spiritual leaders as well, or maybe management. So think of the people that you care about or that you have some feelings about, that you think about often, you think about what they're doing, you think about what they're not doing. You often think about how you wish it was different, that you have fear for them, that you have hope for them. And think about the things that you say and do to try to influence them. Yes, you're right. It is manipulation, not the malicious type. It's usually just worry and or desire that's driving them. And it's really hard when we care about people to let go and let them be who they are. The next area is circumstances or events or situations. Call it whatever you want. Think about the things that are important to you right now. Things that you want to turn out well. You don't want bad things to happen. You need it to go just the way you need it to go, so everything can be okay. And you probably have very good reasons for this. Maybe it's your daughter's education. Maybe it's the house you're trying to sell. The promotion you're going for. The conflict with your spouse you're trying to avoid. Doesn't have to be a big event. I just want you to think of situations that you know you have some emotion around right now. Controlling outcomes is all about trying to control what happens and trying to prevent things from happening. In this area, achievements can be a part of this. Now, that's more identity-based because they can sometimes define how smart, talented, or successful we see ourselves. So maybe we need to get an A on that exam. We need to get a perfect score. We can't make mistakes. It has to look just so. We might be afraid of what people will think if we don't. Tied to this is trying to control the process. How things happen, in what order, who does what, how are they done, when are they done. Micromanaging the process of how people get from A to B, whether that's you getting from A to B or people that you care about, or people that you're working with, or married to, or the parent of, or maybe the son or daughter of. This is the hardest part, I think, for people to really let go of because that's complete surrender. This is hardest for people who perhaps in the past had important people mess it up. They effed up the process. They could not be trusted. Maybe they were irresponsible. They were using. They were dishonest. Maybe they had great intentions but did things halfway and didn't follow through, didn't finish things, missed important details. There were lots of nuts and bolts left over when they put that thing together, kind of thing. So how could you just walk away and let someone put that cabinet together if you're not even sure it's not going to fall apart once they're done? So wanting your hands on the process comes from fear. This can be especially problematic if you have kids and you want them to, let's say, learn how to set the table or clean the room or cut the grass or dust the living room or do their math homework by themselves. What if they don't do it right? We need to learn how to delegate and teach and encourage as they go, as they learn. Another area that may seem like it's the oddball here, but I think it's important, is being attached to ways that you numb, you escape, and you run. So numbing, escaping, and running. And no one wants to admit this. But even if you're not an addict, you still could have an addictive focus when you're stressed and when you don't want to feel and deal. And it all looks so innocent on the outside, so it might be hard to see it. Maybe you're staying too busy yet not seeing that. Because you're so hyper-focused on having to do X, to complete X project, or that training for the marathon, or, fill in the blank. And since it's, about not sitting in what's really going on emotionally, you probably don't see the running behavior. You don't see the medicating. You don't see it with working too many hours, drinking way too much coffee, or way too many glasses of wine, too many carbs, on the phone with other people's problems way too many hours during the week. You can write all of these off and rationalize the hell out of everything I just said. And you can. We all can. Or we can stop and say, what am I doing? What's going on? What do I not want to feel? What do I not want to face? So hopefully you were able to get honest about 1 or 17 things that you might be attached to right now. Be compassionate with yourself. There are very good reasons why you have fear. Why the stakes are high if something doesn't go right. That's okay. And because I care about your sanity and I care about the quality of your relationships with those around you, because you know it's no fun to be around control. It's no fun to be anxiously controlling either. It's awful. It's not relaxing, it is not peaceful, and it's not enjoyable. Even the adrenaline rush you might have for a while, tackling a project or focusing on getting things done, can be draining after a while and empty. So how do we become less attached? Well, the saying goes that we know we're still hanging on to something if when we think or talk about it, there's so much emotion that still comes up. And yeah, you guessed it, the stronger the reaction, the more we are attached to wanting a different outcome that didn't or maybe will never happen. And that's where the fear is. We can't make it unhappen and we can't make it right. Because most attachment is fear-based. The opposite of that is acceptance. Acceptance is letting go of what might happen or what happened and simply be who you are, scars and all. You can set the boundary. You can allow things to play out. You can speak the truth. You can stand in your truth. You can allow others to have their truth. And you can learn how to let the process be the process. What do I mean? Here are some examples. Like maybe you need to work towards acceptance that the person you love is never going to love themselves enough to make better choices. And that's heartbreaking. Maybe you need to accept that there are big social and environmental issues that may or may not be solved, and they certainly won't be solved overnight by you. Maybe it's accepting the past. Maybe you need to accept that bad things happened to you, and you couldn't do anything to stop it, and they probably shouldn't have happened. Those who could have stopped it didn't, which is even worse. Though it still impacts your life today, and I believe many of your decision-making from then until now was largely influenced by what happened. Making peace with it is a process of deep grieving and healing, and it takes time. Maybe you simply need to accept that you can't please everyone, and that you'll waste your life if you keep trying. You'll lose yourself. Letting go of control. So this is where we do the work. And we're going to do more next week too. So we're really going to dive into this. Don't worry. But this week, I want you to just write some things down. Write the things you wish could change, yet you know can't. Then write down the awful fears underneath if it doesn't change. This is grief work. You guessed it. Grieving whatever outcomes you may not be able to secure, or ones you fear the most and why. I think grief is a surrender to what is, letting go of the illusion of control over things and people and events, and the process. We'll get into it more next week, but basically, if you're not familiar, the grief process, the layers. First one is denial, where you don't even realize you're caught up and attached. You don't realize that that's all you think about. Or if anyone runs into you, that's what you mention. That's what you're focused on. That's where your energy goes, your time, your money. Then here comes the anger. the, oh no, but what about, I can't live with that. That can't happen. She can't do that. What if that happens to him? Anger hitting the wall of no, of yelling no. That's not what I want. Or I'm terrified, really, that could be the truth. And then comes the bargaining, the what ifs and the if onlys, trying to make reality unhappen, trying to tweak things to prevent bad things from happening. Not that sometimes this isn't the right thing for us to do. I'm talking about the obsession with it, trying to do things you can't. I hear clients all the time talk about, if I could just get them to see, let me get them to understand, Mary. I'm like, ooh, you're controlling. You're trying to manipulate them. Better to say to yourself, I'm going to flip if they don't understand this, because that's going to have huge ramifications on our relationship, and it very well might. Think about it. If a loved one has a huge problem they don't want to look at, and if you can't get them to see it, quote unquote, it's going to be bad. And that's where we come to the area of grief, of sadness. After you're done fighting, beating your head against the wall, you wave the white flag. There's resignation, I think, in this stage of grief. And coming to acceptance that you're simply not in charge. That you've tried 6 ways to Sunday to change, to morph, to lose yourself, to try to get people to do things they don't want to do. So coming to acceptance is the process, kicking and screaming, and we'll get into a little bit more of that next week. So today we looked at areas of attachment for you. Asked you to think about some that you may be caught up in trying to control lately, around people that you care about, around events or the process, your identity. We explored how most attachments are fear-based because we're afraid of negative outcomes. We're afraid if we let go and stop trying to influence what happens, that somehow we're responsible. Grief work is the answer as we work on letting go and coming to acceptance of what is, giving us perspective, I think, on how detachment with love can help us bring the focus back to ourselves and bring peace back to our relationships. Thank you so much for joining me today. May you practice loving yourself this week. Stay healthy, stay grounded. Be some good in the world next week, please. Check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com if you need the newsletter. It comes out each Tuesday. You can grab the episodes there, the blog, and other great stuff. So, pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.